Okay, we're back, I believe, on Facebook Live. Sorry about that, small technical issue, but we're back on live with Jim and Frank about to record our podcast. In fact, we're just going to do it. We need to do this now.
Record.
Hello and welcome to the PR Week, PR Week's regular weekly roundup of everything that matters in the worlds of PR and communications. My name's Steve Barrett. I'm the editor-in-chief of PR Week, going to guide you gently through the next 25, 30 minutes. Depends how long our guest speaks for. But and that guest is Jim Weiss from W2O Group. How you doing, Jim?
Great.
And your growth and plans for the future. And we got Frank Washkuch, our news editor. How you doing, Frank?
I'm well.
Not much to write about in PR these days,
not
is
these
there?
days.
What happened to the mooch? A mooch and spicy free zone this week.
I think people probably may have had enough of that.
Yeah.
Can you get enough?
Yeah, but so we're going to talk about our 40 under 40. That's a far more positive list of great future leaders in the PR profession. That was released this week, and really proud of that list and some great people in there. We'll talk about the future of influencer marketing. That is such a big part of communications these days, but has certain issues as it grows up, just like everything else. So we'll find out about that. We'll talk about AI, machine learning. Is it all hype, or is there some real activity going on? There was a story this week about a Facebook application learning its own language and talking to itself.
They were negotiating.
Yeah,
the machines were negotiating.
That's a sci-fi film waiting to happen.
That's happening.
Yeah, so that was fascinating. And we'll talk about the general agency market, since we've got Jim here, and trends in that. We've had most of the H1 earnings, and we'll talk about the agency market and anything else that catches our attention moving forward. But first of all, Jim, tell us about where W2O's at. You seem to post impressive growth most years. I've been on this title 7 years, and I think most years you're doing like double-digit growth. And
every year for 16
years. That's, I mean, what's the secret? And how do you? Obviously, you've done some acquisitions as well.
Yes,
we should say that.
That's
so it's not all organic growth.
Yeah.
But talk us through that, and talk us about the investment you've had in the firm and how you're going to move forward in that new situation.
That's helped. We were coming up on that $100 million mark, as you and I had talked about over the years, and after 15, 16 years of really putting in my own money the whole time, I decided that maybe I was getting a bit risk averse and wanted to keep going to that next level and give our people as much growth opportunity as there was. I still saw a gap in the market where clients were looking for something different, wanted to keep moving it forward. So getting this investment obviously has helped us.
Talk us, just for those who don't know,
we got an investment about 18 months ago. It's from a group that was previously KRG Capital, that a lot of people will know them as that. They had invested in Olson Digital and Engage, so that's how a lot of folks in our industry may know them.
Yeah, they sold out to ICF, didn't
exactly. And this group now has been renamed Mountain Gate. They're about to announce a fairly large fundraise, of which we're a big part. So I feel really proud of the partnership we forged. We were looking for a platform opportunity to build on top of what I had me and my team had gotten us in the last 15, 16 years, and it's doing exactly what we'd hoped.
Okay.
We did 3 acquisitions last year.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about that, but let's rewind a little bit. What is the secret sauce? You're in the health space and tech space and lots of other areas, but those have been 2 big focuses for you. What has driven that double-digit growth over so many years?
Well, I think it's the absolute dissatisfaction in me of status quo. I mean, I don't like to stay still, right? I don't. If you're not growing, you're dying, I guess, is sort of how I see it.
Standing still is the new running backwards.
Right. And so, working out on the West Coast, growing up in the business at genetic drugs. So, when Bob Pearson joined my team, from Dell, almost 10 years ago now, unbelievably. And Jen Gutties was critical. Another guy who joined us around that time was Paul Dyer, who's now at Lippy Taylor. Anyway, that whole crew, got together, and over the last 10 years in particular, I think that's played a big role in our differentiation in the marketplace. I think this past year, we're doing more paid social, paid digital. So we're really getting into a lot of the areas most of the other firms have. I think the investment in analytics does make us unique. We've got about 80 people dedicated to analytics.
Talk to me about, you've got a good base in San Francisco.
In tech, that's grown. London is now over 50 people. You guys just put us on your mid-size agency of the year finalists, so thanks, that was great. And the team there has been killing it. I'd made an announcement this morning that we actually shifted Annalise Cody, who was running our Twist brand, to focus on Europe and growth in Europe, while we just added Mary Corcoran from Edelman, who helped build their digital capability over the past 10, 11 years.
So is Annalise going to move to Europe? Or?
She was going back and forth from London, which was definitely a sacrifice and taking a bit of a toll, but she was a trooper about it over the last couple of years, but now we'll stay completely in London.
Okay.
And then start going to Basel. We're looking into Germany and a couple of other markets to continue to grow. I don't know how soon we'll go there. We're always looking for opportunities to...
Okay, so you made some acquisitions. Briefly talk us through those, but then look forward. You've got that financial backing. What's the plan, and where do you aspire to be? We always used to talk about you getting to 100 million. So what's the next sort of target?
Well, we certainly want to double that, right? And this year, I think will put us on that trajectory over the next few years. That's been the plan. And these acquisitions clearly help, and there'll be a couple more, I think. And combining that with, again, AI, linguistics, and just understanding how commerce gets done today, which is completely different than even it was 5 years ago.
Sure.
So it's just trying to stay ahead. Now we're looking at technicians that, have been at Facebook and Amazon and Google. And those are the folks.
You've got to pay them a fair dollar.
You do. But they're not, you'd be surprised. They're not all at those places necessarily.
There are a lot of people who are very deserving who don't make the cut.
Yeah,
we get a lot of very good
300 or 400 people submit to that, and I'd say at least 150, if not more, could easily be in that 40.
It's very hard to narrow it down to 40. So it's a good list this year. It's a good mix of client side, agency side, everybody from nonprofit groups, technology companies, the whole group. It's you not only have a wide range of agencies, but a wide range of industries that are represented. And a lot of companies and a lot of organizations on the list for the first time this year too. So it's a really interesting list.
And incredibly diverse, I thought.
I think it
really,
bodes well. Yeah,
that's important from that perspective.
Yeah, I think it bodes well for the future of the industry. It's great talent, a diverse group of people, and crossing a lot of different industries and sectors. So yeah, it's one of the favourite things we do. We have a dinner on October the 11th, the night before our conference. We're going to change things up a bit this year and make it even more fun. Even more fun than last year, Frank. I don't know
how that can be.
I know, because you were such a great presenter that night. We even got you dancing, didn't we, on stage?
No.
So it's going to be great. It's a real celebration. We're going to try and get the alumni involved as well. Create a little, because some fantastic individuals when you look back over the years and see where those folks have ended up. So,
yeah, and if you look at this list, if you look at some of the companies that are represented, like Taco Bell, companies that are really doing cutting-edge things in marketing, doing interesting stuff out there. So
Taco Bell is doing some fascinating stuff, actually. It's in LA, I think, is where they're based. They're part of Yum Brands, which is based in Kentucky.
Yeah, and we'll plug our nominee who got on there, Claire Mulhern, who comes from Merck, doing, I think what characterizes these people as they go into their companies and they take risks and chances and stick their neck out for, programming that isn't what that a company where they are typically would do.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for people to understand why not to be.
Yeah, another thing that always jumps out to me when you're going through the list, though, is how many of the people who are young have founded their own agency at that point. It's startling almost when you see how many people are on the list.
Well, one of our acquisitions that we did last year was Marketecting, and the guy who runs that started his firm in college.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's Mark Zuckerberg.
But he's finally 30. He's not under 30 anymore.
We're 40, man. He's still got 10 years. 10 years to get on it. Talking about bold, taking risks in the new environment, influencer marketing is something we've talked about a lot on the podcast. We had an influencer on here a couple of weeks ago,
Right.
Chrissy Beth, who was fantastic. There's a bit of research. Why are we talking about influencer marketing this week, Frank?
Why not?
Yeah, but there was a story on your website that you look after.
Okay.
Oh, we've stumped him. All right.
Yeah.
Jim, talk us through where influencer marketing fits into modern communications, because it's no longer the fact that you have to tell your clients' messages through mainstream media. You just don't have. Obviously, it's still important, and media relations is still important. But
Very.
So, how much has it changed the fields that you guys are specialising in?
Well, I think I'd like to thank Bob Pearson for coming over from Dell when he did, because I think he was pioneering this, back when we weren't even calling it that. An event that we did for Page out there.
Great.
And it's a great group of people out there. And I think, the opportunity in influencer marketing obviously has grown exponentially in that 10-year period and evolved. Now, we have our own proprietary platforms, but one in particular, M Digital Life, which is really focused on physician influencers and healthcare influencers. And we've done a lot of extensive work on it. We've also begun to do a healthcare pricing influencer model. Again, helping our clients see that it's not all done through, ads and editorials in the Times and the Journal. Those are important places to put things. Because again, it's not just one form of media, there are just many more opportunities to get the information out.
When you talk about healthcare influencers, how much vetting do you have to do? It would seem to be less than, if you were going after a big, broad consumer, teen-focused audience.
I think it's more of that.
Is it more?
I would say because there are regulatory issues at play with FDA, and you've got to make sure that the influencers you're dealing with understand those nuances in terms of how they're communicating. But again, I think just our understanding of the audience, which is the first step, right? And then architecting that audience, right? What does that need to look like?
Their name in the New York Times and
they do,
the Wall Street Journal, don't they? Which is still important.
But it's been fun enlightening them, because I feel like we've spent a decade educating folks, and it is unbelievable in terms of, who has influence. And look, the commander-in-chief is his own media outlet, right?
For sure.
As we've seen. And that's usually how people that we're talking to and we're trying to convince of the importance of influencer marketing, I think that puts the light on.
How much did influencer marketing take a bit of a hit from the sort of Firefest thing and the Kardashians sometimes? Right. Kim Kardashian.
Well, the Kardashian one was a cooling one in healthcare, right?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
We have a very risk-averse client base in healthcare, understandably, because of the FDA. But I think with the new FDA commissioner coming in, Scott Gottlieb, who does understand and has participated in the social media world, I think he in particular understands.
How much do you want a regulator to lead, and how much do you want a regulator to reflect practice? They seem to go for the latter, where they'll let things play out and then maybe come in when they need to. And augmented intelligence is the human bit as well as the machines, which I guess is where the big value is.
Well, we talk about insights, right? It's not just healthcare or any other regulated industry, because you got to know the rules, right? The rules will be there.
Yeah, well, let's look out for that feature. It's going to be great, and we'll try and do.
I know, I got to get in that feature.
Yeah, well, it might be too
late.
I
showed up.
Yeah,
really? Yeah, it probably is too late. I've been too late here a few times.
Let's finish by going back to the agency market. We've had the H1 results, Frank, and they weren't great, were they?
No, they're not pretty.
We talked about the John Wren at Omnicom laying down a bit of a marker.
You could say that, yeah.
What about the mid-sized firms and the smaller firms? Because they seem to be doing a bit better. And Jim will obviously get you to talk about this.
Yeah. So I mean, I was just having lunch with an agency leader, and one thing that he mentioned was they do a diverse range of different types of work. Some are in media, some other things. They're seeing a smaller amount of their total earnings coming out of earned media than they used to. So you would think, especially when you're talking about the mid-sized
integrated shops, almost out of necessity because of their
we did too.
regionality, and you guys too. But now the market's kind of come to you, hasn't it? Because that's what the clients want. How's that playing out for you?
But we've always designed the firm that way. You know, if a client said to me, even when I was just one guy in my loft, can you do this? I said, yes, I can, you know, and I found a way to do it. I mean, I think you become resourceful, but again, that was informed by my being in-house for many years and understanding that communications meant everything, right? Including marketing and sales and internal and so many, many things. And, you know, we've just never been satisfied playing a niche role with the client, and we want to solve their problems. So if we're solving their problems, they go way beyond an earned media placement. But I have a very
profit lines. It's a bigger tanker to turn around, and they're finding it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, it may be, but I've been talking about their demise for 20 years, and they're still here, right?
They're
not demised.
No, they're not going.
Right,
no,
and they're not going anywhere. They're great. They're great talent there. I've learned most of what I know from that. You know, I look at that situation and simply say they're reporting every quarter. You know, when you have to report every quarter, there's a different pressure that comes with that job and game. And, you know, again, we're running our firm much more disciplined in recent years, you know, focused on performance and achievement, but we're able to invest, right?
That for sure. And having so many different, what I do sense is that they're cutting down the number of brands. You know, WPP has been doing this, and they're trying to go to market with a more integrated sell. And
again, these are problems of intense growth. Like, think about, I mean, I've been in the business long enough. You know, I remember when, Martin Sorrell was still a shopping cart guy and just was buying up these firms, one of which I worked at, Hill & Knowlton. And that was the beginning of this. And look at the growth and what's happened in all that time. Amazing things. They invested in digital very early and quickly.
It's worth every penny of that salary, isn't it?
It's pretty impressive, right? I mean, I should have his problems.
yeah, he's still enthusiastic and passionate about what he does, which is
right.
I'll
stay here.
We can leave you here.
I'll just keep talking to Facebook.
But we'll look forward to how you're rolling out and your continued success, because it's been a great story.
Yeah, we're still growing, and great team, great people. And our goal has always been to be the best, and if you become the best, then you do well.
All right, October the 12th, we've got our Swipe Right conference, which is fantastic, actually. Really brilliant lineup of speakers. It's going to be a very interactive day, lots of networking, lots of new things, lots of innovation. We've got the CMO at Facebook, Gary Briggs. We've got Michelle Peluso, the CMO of IBM. We've got the girl with no job. Talking of influencers, one of the biggest influencers out there. And we've got some other influencers. Manon Matthews, I think, is going to be on the agenda. So up at Convene on 7th Avenue, where we were giving people tips. We gathered a group of high-level judges from the client side and agency side, giving people lots of tips on how to put a great entry together and how to stand out in the awards. So we'll try and round up some findings from that as well, some content. We may even try and dig out the video. But it was a great event, well worth attending. First time we've done that, and went very well. But that's it. That's all we got time for this week. We'll see you next time on the PR Week.